He played the master, you know, when the master first reappeared, the older guy, right? And so I would check that out. So I looked at that series to kind of get the whole mystery vibe of how to put a mystery story in a fantasy genre. And it was more difficult than I thought, because even though I knew in my mind the answer to the mystery was vampires, you know, and a couple of the main characters were investigating, you know, why are these young girls disappearing? You know, where are they going? You know, and them starting the investigation in a pub, and you know, there was a young vampire. He was a prince of the king of vampires. This is a whole long story, but he would go to the pub every night and get these girls drunk, and then take them in a back alley and drain them of their blood and this and that. So, you know, by the time I got to chapter 6, for me, being a fantasy writer, it was hard for me to contain the mystery, and that was the hardest part about writing a mystery book, is trying to contain the answer until near the end, right? And it worked pretty much for the first 6 chapters, and then, for me anyway, it turned out to be, the last 6, more of a back to the basic fantasy. But I gave it a shot, but I melded it in very well. And in that book, you know, it's interesting that when you're writing, you don't realize how much of your life experiences or influences, you know, enter into your mind and on paper, or if you're using Microsoft Word, that actually comes into your stories. Like, for example, I was writing, you know, that book, and in the last chapter, I have like 7 armies fighting each other. And then all of a sudden I was watching Lord of the Rings, and I go, wait a minute, or The Hobbit, I'm sorry. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, 5 armies. Wait. But when I was writing, I never thought of The Hobbit. It never came to my mind. Tolkien never came to my mind. It just was in my subconscious that it just comes out. You know, but, you know, just don't plagiarize. Just don't do that. But, you know, so many of your life experiences just come, and you don't even know it till after it's written. You go, oh my gosh. You know, maybe some of your characters, they have some kind of quirk or something, you know, and then you realize later, wait a minute, when I was 7, my great-grandmother used to do that, but you know, you don't realize it till later. Or you'll write something and then you'll watch an old TV show and you'll be like, wait a minute, that sounds very similar. So you have to, you know, so basically all your life, things you've done in your life will always come out in your book. Even if it's subconscious, it'll come to you. So for me, fantasy is my first love. And one thing I would say in regards to fantasy is, see, I write historicals, so all my cities and everything, they're all real places. Like, you can go there and see it. Hey, maybe this is where this happened, or maybe this is where they fought the dragon. You just don't know. So, but a lot of fantasy authors, they like to create their own world. In fact, almost all of them do. Because they find it easier to write. But for me, I find it very difficult. Like, you know, like movies the same way. For example, I was watching Mystery Science Theater, if you've ever watched that show. I love that, and I love riff tracks. And I was watching an episode of a movie they were doing called Cave Dwellers. And it's one of my favorites. And they were making fun, because it's a fantasy movie, they were making fun of